Hello everyone, it's Leon here, and I'm joined by Meeks, who has reviewed Dark Souls 2.
Yes, indeed.
Which obviously is lovely and relaxing and calm and soothing.
So I did a little panning shot there for the audience.
Beautiful. So, is it as bad as the last one?
In terms of, oh my god, I'm going to pull my hair and all my eyelashes and any other body part I can get my hands on.
That's the one, yes.
Yes. If anything, it's actually more difficult. I'd say, you know, I think there was I mentioned this in review, there was a general consensus beforehand that From Software might dumb it down for the sequel and try and make it more accessible.
Yeah.
That is just not the case. They have made some concessions, which we might get onto later, but in the here and now, if we're just talking about, say, the first 8 to 10 hours, it's a quantifiably harder game than the last one, which was already friggin' hard.
What did you give it again, sorry?
9 out of 10.
9 out of 10, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, we were just talking about this before I switched the mic on. There's moments here where you're like, it just looks unfair. Like, case in point, what's just about to happen, which you said you knew about at this point, but didn't the first time. And it kind of feels like, well, how are you supposed to... It's not going to do it now. When there's a moment when we go past these black holes, and like, if you don't know it's coming, what are you meant to do?
Die. And
here we go.
Several times. So, I guess that's, as much as I love this game, I think that's one area of criticism it might open itself up to in a way that the predecessor didn't. It is at times a little more unfair. Being unfair is not a criticism I've ever leveled at the first game, just because it felt so supremely balanced, and when you died it's usually because, you know, you'd risked resources you shouldn't have, or, you know, you made a rash decision, etc, etc. There are cases in this when, you know, there is a touch of naughtiness with things jumping out at you that you could realistically never know they were there. And the big thing that makes it harder in the last game is it returns to the hell system from Demon Souls. So every time you die you become hollow, which is essentially an undead state.
Yeah.
And each time you become more and more hollow, not only does your physical appearance deteriorate, but your HP slowly gets capped. So you can find yourself essentially at half HP once you die, say it'll say 5 or 6 times. Now you can reverse that with human effigies, which are essentially the equivalent of the last game's humanity orbs, but they are very rare, like much rarer than humanity in the last game. So that is the one big area where it is more difficult. Other ways, you know, you can now carry more weapons and you can carry more ring slots, which is a big help. And generally the combat does feel a lot more fluid, as we're seeing here. It just, unlike the last game, it's now full analog movement, which gives you a lot more control in tight spaces. I
mean, most of what I've seen people in reviewing it talking about, I mean, they really enjoyed it and they've really got into it. If you played it before, as I understand it, the sort of vocabulary and the learning you went through in the first game kind of helped you prepare for this, because you know that, you know, maybe you shouldn't bother with the skeletons straight away, and you sort of understand kind of more about what the game wants you to do.
Yeah, so it's, I guess, in terms of wandering off into areas that you shouldn't be wandering off in when you're starting, because the enemies are far too leveled up. That's not as much of an issue this time, because it's generally the game's a little bit less open to you at the beginning. You can still go to 2 or 3 areas, but none of them are like, oh my god, I won't stand a chance. So in that way it's a bit more tightly designed than the last one.
I mean, because the fear was it was going to be dumbed down, because the first one had so much kind of acclaim, people talking about it, they would try and make it accessible sort of to a mainstream audience. That's not been the case.
Well, I guess, like, pre-release there was, you know, a lot of press on the guy from the guy who voices Darth Maul, as, you know, doing a lot of voice acting, and
Peter Serafinich.
Yep, that's one. Too much plot, you know, it's going to lose the purity of the combat. They're going to dumb down the challenge.
Well, they talked about making it more accessible.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's still a very bare smidgen of a plot in there, but it certainly does not get in the way. The production values and the narrative side of things are a bit higher this time. The cutscenes are a bit more smoothly directed. You mentioned
like more ring slots, more weapons. You know, what are the sort of the key changes then between Dark Souls and Dark Souls 2?
I mean, mechanically it is very similar, apart from, you know, I just mentioned it is a great, it's far more smooth, you know, and the engine looks a lot better, you know.
It looks lovely, yeah.
In terms of lighting and particle effects, as I said in the review, this is a seriously handsome PS3 game. You can tell the core assets have gone through quite a working. You know, in terms of the combat, it is very similar. It's all about strafing, keeping tight, knowing when to counter and parry. Having more weapons, you can now carry 3 weapons. It just makes it easier to switch between a sword and a spear and maybe a bow for long distance. The ring system is where, you know, that's really beneficial, because in the last game you're capped to 2 rings, and rings are essentially give you elemental and stats boost. So stronger physical attacks.
Yeah.
Increased resistance to getting petrified, or fire attacks or things like that. Or there's a very useful ring in here, which is near the Blue Cathedral for anyone who wants to get it, called the Ring of Binding. This is helpful. You want this. It basically stops the HP loss when you're hollowed out, which is really useful early on in the game. So.
How does the there's a new summoning system now, isn't there? There's more covenants and
yeah, like there are more covenants open from earlier in the game, and they're a bit easier to find. Covenants essentially, again, give you like trophies for joining them, and some of them have like different side quests and certain parameters. There's one like I think it's the Blue Covenant right at the beginning in the Manjula homeworld, but if you summon them, or if you join the Covenant I should say, it basically makes it more easy to be summoned to in online play, so it makes it a bit easier to get together with other folks. So I think this is one area, even though I've not stress test the online mode in much depth yet, it does appear on the surface like it is a bit more streamlined in terms of finding new players, and it all being a little less mysterious than the last game. So. Yeah,
so we're doing gestures there. Is that a new thing?
No, the gestures were in the last game. You can learn them from certain characters you meet in the world, like NPCs and friendly phantoms and such. So
I mean, structurally, is it same as the last game in that you sort of you spread out and you find bonfires and there's sort of little hub areas. So
yeah, the new world, it's not Lordran anymore. It's Drangleic. If I've pronounced that right, I've probably pronounced it wrong. But yeah, it's a big open world, connected by various thematically very different areas. This area is, I think it's called No Man's Wharf.
I mean, visually everywhere looks remarkably different.
Yeah, like visually it probably jumps around a bit more than the last game, so it does feel less cohesive. I guess a big difference with the traversal system is now you can access bonfires. You can warp between bonfires right from the beginning of the game, which was a power that you could only use, I think, in the last basically quarter of the original Dark Souls. So it makes jumping between points a lot easier, and as a consequence there's a lot less backtracking, which I guess is a concession to making things more accessible.
I mean, I haven't played a huge amount. I played about sort of maybe 13 hours of the first game, which I know is nothing compared to most people.
I had 100 plus hours saved for when I finished it.
But it's an interesting game, isn't it? Because it's not hard in an unfair way. It takes you a while to understand what you're meant to be doing and how you're meant to play the game. If you go into it cold, it's a really stern kind of...
Absolutely, you have to learn its sensibilities, and it's a game all about countering, and I'm not just saying powering attacks, it's like counter windows, so being patient, not rushing in with attacks, and it's not unfair, but it is a game that for even a second's lapse of concentration, it will punish you.
It's not unfair, it's unforgiving.
It's absolutely unforgiving, and it punishes you like no other game. Like, you could lose 40 minutes of progress by doing a slightly stupid action. So.
Okay, so you gave it 9 out of 10. What are the pros?
Pros are it looks great, and it's rewarding, like almost no other game when you do start achieving victory.
And cons?
It's very, very hard, and if you don't like getting repeatedly beaten, then it might not be for you.
And is this the hardest boss?
I stayed up till 6:30 in the morning trying to beat this bloody spider. I did eventually beat him. I don't beat him here. He'll soon kill me. But this guy's hard. I suggest just keep strafing and hitting him a lot with a leveled up halberd if you want.
Cool. So 9 out of 10. It's not been dumbed down at all, but still not for the faint of heart.
Yeah, and it's brilliant.
Lovely. Thank you very much.